Howdy. This is the Views from the Schott podcast. I'm your host, your one and only host, Tim Miller, and today it is Monday, October 14th, 2024, and I wish you a very, very, very happy Be Bald and Be Free Day. Today's show is, as always, presented by our exclusive partner of the show for this season, CBB Analytics. Go to cbbanalytics.com right now as you're listening. So long as it's safe, you can sign up for an account and get access to all the stats that Division I programs have access to, including programs like the Ohio State University Buckeyes. So today's show, we are going to cover the backcourt as a part of the season preview series here on the Views from the Schott podcast, covering Ohio State basketball and Ohio State basketball only. So if it's Monday and you're feeling a little down about another college football team that lost on Saturday, maybe the Ohio State University Buckeyes, tough loss to Oregon. Obviously, that hurts, but we need something to make you feel a little bit better. Well, this podcast might be able to do it for you because we only cover Ohio State basketball. So make sure if you're watching on YouTube, you like the video, subscribe on YouTube. If you're listening on podcast, give a 5-star review. Make sure you're subscribed there. Follow on the socials, Twitter. You got to be there on Friday night. I decided to give you a little gift and posted some intel on the class of 2025 and 2026 as it relates to Ohio State. 2 prospects liked tweets that they were mentioned in, and one retweeted a tweet. That one was Jerry Easter. The other 2 prospects are private, or likes are private, so you're not able to see that. I am able to see it. So maybe some of that intel was accurate. That's why you got to be following on Twitter, Instagram. We're posting reels there, so make sure you're following there. You can follow on Facebook, and of course on YouTube you can subscribe as well. So we're covering the backcourt today. Would appreciate the likes and the shares and all that stuff on the tweet that comes out as well, publishing this episode, especially given it's a Monday evening. It's not the best time to post a podcast, but I want to do that and just wait for the AP poll to come out. So we'll talk about the AP poll. We're going to also talk about observations in regards to the backcourt. We'll do a player-by-player breakdown. That includes 9 players and the biggest questions that we have going into the season when it relates to the backcourt. So let's move along, shall we, with a backcourt preview. But before that, I'm going to talk about Ohio State not being ranked in the AP poll. So if you've listened to this show before, you know my feelings on the AP poll. If you haven't listened, I'll make it as simple as possible. The AP poll is absolutely meaningless. Go look at Net. Go look at KenPom. Look at more analytics-facing polls, not the AP poll. Look, the AP poll in football is useless and stupid enough because none of those voters are watching every single college football game. They're going to take a look at a box score, what we refer to here as box score watchers. That's what voters in the AP poll are. They don't love the game the way that you and I do, and there's no way that they're going to watch every game that's played on any given weekend in the college football space. Now, move to college basketball. You've got 2 games per week taking place. If you've got 2 games per week taking place, you're already not watching every football game. There's no shot that AP voters are watching every single college basketball game that takes place. So what are they going to do? They're going to scroll through. They're going to look at a few box scores every week for certain teams, and then they're going to place their votes based on, did Duke win? Did Kansas State win? And if so, cool, they look good. And if they didn't win, then they're going to drop. Even if, for example, Ohio State was a mere second away from beating Oregon on Saturday, and yet they fall in the AP poll. Should they have really changed? Probably not. That's as close to a tie as it gets in college football. And by the way, that took place at Oregon, so that even looks better for Ohio State. Yet they still fall because the AP poll is merely power rankings. How did you do in the previous week? We don't watch the games. We don't care. And for that reason, on the Views from the Schott podcast, we do not care about the AP poll. However, we will still talk about it because, well, it's good content. People care about it. So the Buckeyes are unranked. I did not expect Ohio State to be ranked. I expected them to receive votes, and that's exactly what happened. So not in the top 25. They're 33rd overall. They got the 33rd most votes or points, or however you want to consider that, which means they're voted by some to be in the top 25, just not by enough. However, there are 8 teams on the schedule that made the preseason top 25. Preseason polls as meaningless as a poll gets because you're just guessing and projecting. And typically, if you see Duke, if you see Kansas number 1, see logos like that, you're going to vote them high. Now, Duke, Kansas, they deserve to be in there, but that's kind of how the poll goes to start the season. I doubt that there's many people who are doing full deep dives on every single program that matters, and that is any high major or mid major that has a chance to win any games. I'm sure no one does a deep dive, and there's probably not too many AP voters who know who Tayson Chapman is, for example. And is there a single AP voter who knows who Ivan Egamon is? Probably not. We move on. We digress. 8 teams on the schedule make the top 25. Auburn in there. Ohio State's going to play them. 8 teams on Ohio State's schedule make the top 25. Just to clarify, Auburn on there. Ohio State will travel to Texas A&M. The Aggies are on there. Purdue ranked pretty highly. Indiana, Texas, who Ohio State will open against. UCLA, Kentucky, and Rutgers, I believe it's 25th in the AP poll. They're on there as well. And then you've got 6 other teams that receive votes. Those teams: Illinois, Michigan State, Michigan. I believe Michigan was 1 spot higher than Ohio State, or maybe 1 spot lower, but I think 1 spot higher. Oregon, Wisconsin, and Maryland, I believe, received 1 exact vote. So good for you, Terrapins. The Buckeyes get a chance, though, for a ranked win right off the bat when they face Texas, who is ranked number 19. So that bodes well for Ohio State. And if they win that game and you take care of business against Youngstown State, I think it's the second game. I could be wrong on that. Whoever they play that second game, you take care of business. You will be ranked heading into that first, I guess the second week of the season, but 1 full week of play. So at least you have that. Do you really care? No, not really. The casual amongst us, they do care about the AP poll because they're going to see a game. Talking to someone about Penn State and USC over the weekend. I said this is a strictly Ohio State basketball show. Now, not only are we talking about Ohio State football, but we're talking about other college football teams. Now, let me make this point, please. Penn State faces USC. This Penn State fan says, I'm not worried about USC. They're not even ranked. What happened in that game? It went to overtime. Now, this person still said, I was never worried. I was never worried. Even when you were down 20-3 or whatever the score was, never worried. Yeah, I'm sure. Those who are casual, they care about the AP poll. They look at the number beside the name as they're scrolling through their app of seeing what college basketball games are they going to watch today, and they see a number 11 against a number 21. Cool. They'll watch that, even if that number 21 shouldn't even been sniffing the top 25. So there's that. The Buckeyes get a chance to beat a team with a number next to their name and have a chance to have a number next to their name in the second week of the season. So we'll see what happens with that. Don't care about the AP poll, but we'll talk about it because I know there are some people who do care. All right. On to the backcourt. That's what we talk about here. We're 3 weeks away from the college basketball season starting. Literally 3 weeks away. You might be watching this right now at 10 p.m. Eastern on Monday night, or listening 10 p.m. Eastern on Monday night. Ohio State will be tipping off literally 3 weeks from that minute. So that's exciting. I'm wearing my Ohio State hat today to show the excitement. And also because I'm not thrilled with how my hair looks today. All right, observations on the back court. These are some things that I'm hearing from practice, from those within the program, and just things that we know already. Number 1 observation as we talk about the backcourt heading into the new season: speed. Speed is going to be a key for Ohio State in the backcourt. Ohio State picks up Meechie Johnson. We're going to talk about him. He was one of the best players in the entire nation last season when it comes to going downhill with the ball in his hands. Not many players as powerful, as fast, that quick first step that Meechie Johnson has. That is now going to be transfused, if that's the right word, into the Ohio State roster. We know Bruce Thornton can score on the drive as well. He can get really crafty in the lane. Now, he's not necessarily utilizing as much speed to score, but in the fast break, he can get up there and he can get downhill. That helps a lot. Quez Glover, a player that probably no one at Ohio State in terms of the fan base knows about. Quez Glover, he has extreme straight line, lightning fast speed as well. That's what I've been hearing out of practice. If he can stay healthy, that's going to help Ohio State a bunch as well. So Ohio State has a lot more speed, I would say, in terms of being able to run up and down the floor than it has had in previous years, and that bodes really well for what Jake Diebler wants to run as head coach at Ohio State. And then three-point shooting. This has been a huge area of emphasis, not just for the backcourt, for the front court as well. Austin Parks, Ivan Negavon, Sean Stewart, Aaron Bradshaw, all those guys are chalking up threes. Evan Mahaffey, you are expected to be able to make three-pointers if you're going to play for Jake Diebler. And that is going to be an area of emphasis, especially here for this backcourt. Bruce Thornton, we know he's more than capable of hitting from deep. You need him to shoot like he did as a freshman in terms of accuracy, but still keep the general production that he had as a sophomore. We'll talk about that more in a second when we talk about Bruce Thornton. He was more accurate as a freshman. As the volume went up as a sophomore, the metrics went down. Can you merge those? Can you be a really good three-point shooter while shooting at a high volume? Junie Mobley is a marksman. So he was named the sniper in the 2024 class superlatives by 247 Sports. He was selected to compete in the 2024 high school three-point contest as well. This guy can hit from deep. We'll talk about him as well. Meechie Johnson. He shot 32 point something percent literally in every single year of his career in college basketball. We know what he is as a shooter. Can you get more out of him this season? Maybe he can shoot 33, 34, maybe 35%, but you'd be crazy to think that he can hit at a rate closer to 40% than 30% at this point in his career. We know he's a volume shooter. We know he can shoot and make three-pointers. Ques Glover, 37% in his last full season at Samford. Other than that, relatively pedestrian as a shooter. And if he can shoot well, if he can shoot that 37% number, that obviously bodes really well for Ohio State. Micah Parrish, he shot below 30% from deep last season. 29.9%, I believe, was the exact number. But 35% as a junior and 37% as a sophomore at Oakland. This is a player like Bruce Thornton, and you'll see this a lot with players. As the volume goes up, your percentage of hitting a lot of times will go down. If Micah Parrish doesn't have to shoot 4 3-pointers per game, over 4 3-pointers per game, and he shoots 3 this year, can he be closer to 40% than 30%? If so, that's going to be a big impact for Ohio State. And you can even talk about Colin White when you're talking about three-point shooting. So before he came in Ohio State, before he even got a scholarship offer, when Chris Holtmann was still leading the program, he was asked multiple times, hey, you need to become a more complete player. You need to be better in this aspect of your game, be better in that aspect of your game. He has improved. One area where he needed to improve was three-point shooting. From what I've heard, that has happened. Ohio State is pleased with that. Now, is he going to be a Junie Mobley? No, he's not going to be a player like Junie Mobley, but he should be capable of hitting a three if he's open, and that's what you need from a freshman who is ranked outside the top 100 in high school recruiting ranks. So three-point shooting, that'll be an area of emphasis. That's something to keep an eye on. The last thing, which is kind of a concern, is the depth. This was a major concern, at least for me in this podcast, before the roster was finalized. Ohio State picks up Ques Glover. That helps. But this is a team that's going to play 3 guards more often than not. That starting lineup right now, I would project Bruce Thornton in there, Meechie Johnson in there, and Micah Parrish in there. Those are 3 guards. So those are your starters, and then point guard depth. Maybe Junie Mobley, maybe Ques Glover are interchangeable. Let's say, just for argument's sake, Ques Glover is the backup point guard. Junie Mobley is the backup shooting guard. Who do you have after that? If you get into foul trouble, which Bruce Thornton hasn't really dealt with that, but Meechie Johnson definitely has. Micah Parrish has been an efficient defender too over his career in college basketball. But if you get into foul trouble, you're now looking to Colby Baumann or Braylen Nash, who is a freshman walk-on for the program. That is a concern right now. Now, the 3, you've got more options because at times you can bring in from the front court Evan Mahaffey, you can bring in Sean Stewart, you can bring in Devin Royal potentially, and of course you got Colin White there to back up Micah Parrish, but there's not a lot of depth at the 1 and the 2 guard position for Ohio State. This is going to be a team that wants to play its guards a lot. We know that Bruce Thornton will get a lot of playing time. He got a lot of playing time last year as well. This is a concern. How big of a concern should it be? Well, we'll talk about that moving on in the show. So let's get into a player-by-player breakdown here. I've sorted this by your number. Lowest number to highest. Would that be descending or ascending order? I'm not sure. Don't really care. We're going lowest to highest. So that means we start with number 0, and that is Junie Mobley. So Junie Mobley is going to come in. He's a top 50-ish player in his class, coming in as a freshman to Ohio State. What we know right off the bat, he's going to get playing time, whether by necessity or simply because he is that good. It's going to be a combination of both. But Junie Mobley is going to play for Ohio State this year. Tayson Chapman is out for the year with an ACL injury. Quez Glover, he's been an off-injured player during his time in college basketball, from Florida to Stanford to Kansas State. We'll talk about him here in a second as well. So if there's an injury to Glover, Chapman's already out. Junie Mobley, his role could be even bigger. Now, here's the good with Junie Mobley. He's got skill. He's got his style of play is conducive to playing at Ohio State as well. He's very smooth with the ball in his hands. He's a smooth mover. He's got a good handle, good dribble. All those types of things are good, but his game starts with being able to hit the 3-point shot. He can pull up, he can hit from deep, he can hit from really, really deep as well. He's got the limitless range badge, you could say. If he's playing 2K, that's who Junie Mobley is. Now, the good thing is that not only is he a good 3-point shooter, he's a good penetrator, he's a good driver as well. So he can set up defenders really well with penetrating moves. He can step back once he decides to take a dribble or two, a step or two inside the 3-point line, step back, fire, snap in a 3. And because his ability from deep is so profound, that plays well and benefits him if you begin to play him really close. He's smart enough. He's got the ability to take a couple dribbles inside and hit a floater. Does he have the frame to be able to finish really consistently at the rim? At this point, probably not. But if there's a player that you can buy stock in simply because they're cheap right now on the Ohio State roster and you could get a really, really big return, that is 100% going to be Junie Mobley. This is a guy that you invest in if you're talking about a player who you don't know what you're going to get out of him, or the price of him right now in terms of what you expect to get out of him maybe isn't that high. When we're in February, this could be a player who's playing really, really well and advancing Ohio State. He could be a player where if he produces in his freshman season, he takes Ohio State from an NCAA tournament team to, oh, this team should be a Sweet 16 team for sure. He can really produce a lot for Ohio State. You should be really excited about Junie Mobley heading into this season. Next up, it's Meechie Johnson, wearing number 1 for the Buckeyes. So he went to Big Ten Media Days with Bruce Thornton and head coach Jake Diebler. So that right off the bat shows, well, he's probably a good speaker. You'll take that. I will not name a player that you're definitely not going to take, because that would be rude. But I've heard some things in that regard to leadership and just overall mesh with the team. We are not going to name that on the show right now. However, we're talking about Meechie. That's where we'll keep this. He goes to Big Ten Media Days. You expect him to be a leader. You expect him to be clear, communicate, and obviously be good on this team. So let's talk about, first of all, what has changed since his first stint in Ohio State to South Carolina, now back to Ohio State. Well, experience is number 1, obviously. He's now played 2 full seasons at South Carolina, but it's not just that. It's the fact that he's been leaned on at South Carolina. So last season, he led the Gamecocks in scoring 14 points per game, and he was second on the team in assist production as well. The year before that, he was second on the team in scoring, and he scored double digits at Ohio State 2 total times. That happened against Bowling Green and Xavier. He never scored double digits in a Big Ten contest. He wasn't really leaned on in that way. Probably part of the reason why he left Ohio State the first time, but he's back now, and that's what we care about. So that's one way that he's changed. He's been leaned on. Another way he's changed is he's not the most efficient scorer, but he has become better in that regard. He shot just 31% from the field at Ohio State and 32% from the 3-point line. As we already mentioned, he's a lifetime 32% shooter from the 3-point line, but his field goal numbers have gone up. He was 40% 2 years ago from the field, 36%. That went down a little bit last year from the field. So that those numbers were better, and he shot way more than he did in that first full year at Ohio State. And he's become a more well-rounded player overall. So he shoots a bunch from behind the three-point line. That's what he did at South Carolina. That's what he did at Ohio State as well. But since joining South Carolina, he's upped his field goal attempt rate from inside the three-point line. He's become a better rebounder, and his assist ratio has more than doubled, while his turnover rate has been cut in half. That's huge. That shows maturity. That shows a better understanding of the flow of the game, of the speed of the game. If you can share the ball better while reducing your turnover numbers, that's huge. And that's how Meechie Johnson has changed since he went from South Carolina to Ohio State. So you talk about the experience, you talk about the fact that he was leaned on more there, you talk about the ability to score from more areas of the floor and increase the efficiency, and just becoming a more well-rounded player overall. So this year, what do you need from a guy like Meechie Johnson? Well, number one, you need better defensive production from him. He had a 2.0 steal rate last year at South Carolina. That's fine, but the Hakeem rate, the personal foul efficiency, both 38th percentile last season. Not good. Not good. You need better production defensively. You need him to not foul out of games. You need him to not get into foul trouble, especially because, again, of what I've talked about. What the major concern is in this backcourt is the depth. If Meechie is hurt, or if Meechie has 3 fouls at halftime, you're now saying, all right, Junie, you're our starter. And if Junie gets in foul trouble, or if Bruce Thornton gets in foul trouble, you're leaning on Quez Glover. And outside of that, if you need to sub a guy out, you can't. You can't throw Braylen Nash in there. You can't throw Colby Baumann in there. I'm sorry. I wish you could. I'm not trying to downplay those players' abilities, but they're on this roster for a reason, and the reason is not to come in and give you 15 minutes in a game or give you 12 minutes and a half when you're in a pinch. That's not what those players are on the roster for. So that's a concern. You need him to be better defensively, and you need him to shoot better as well. It's simple, but lifetime, 32% as a three-point shooter. He's never shot above 40% from the field goal. From the field. Sorry, I should say. You got to be better in that regard as well. You got to be more efficient. Does being on a team with Bruce Thornton, a very, very, very good guard, and a player who maybe if you're giving more attention to Bruce Thornton, does that help kind of offload the pressure on Meechie Johnson? Are you leaned on not necessarily less, but you have less pressure on you, and you can become a better shooter? That's the goal. That's the hope for him. If you get that out of Meechie, if you're up to a 45% shooter from the field, like I said, if you're up to 35% from the three-point line, you're really, really happy with that. At the end of the day, this could be a really, really lethal 1-2 punch for Ohio State. Bruce Thornton coming in here. We're going to talk about him in just a second. But Meechie Johnson, with his ability to score, with his ability not just to hit three-point shots, but hit three-point shots from deep, this could end up being not just the best 1-2 punch in the Big Ten when it comes to guard play. This could be one of the best, a top 10 1-2 punch in terms of guard play in the entire nation. That's how good Meechie Johnson and Bruce Thornton could be playing together. So if they hit that potential, the sky really is a limit for Ohio State. All right, Bruce Thornton. If you're talking about the guy at the Ohio State University, that guy is Bruce Thornton. If you're going to win a big title, it starts with Bruce Thornton. If you're going to beat Texas on November 4th, it starts with Bruce Thornton. If you're going to advance to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament for the first time in about a decade, it starts with Bruce Thornton. He's already preseason All Big Ten, one of 10 players to earn that honor. And you look at his previous years, from his freshman to his sophomore year, points per game, 10.6 to 15.7. His stats per 40 minutes as well were better as well. The assist rate goes from 16% to 28% from his freshman to his sophomore year. That obviously is excellent as well. And he's always been good at taking care of the ball. Turnover rate from 12% his freshman year down to 7.9% in his sophomore year. So you'll take all of those numbers. You're happy with the improvement that Bruce Thornton showed last season, not just from a freshman to a sophomore, but being the guy, getting the most minutes on the team. That's really, really good to see. Now, shooting-wise, he's a great scorer in the paint. We know that. His numbers were actually worse, however, last season in the paint from freshman to sophomore year. As a freshman, he was 55% in the paint field goal percentage. Now, as a sophomore, all the way down to 44%. His mid-range shooting, however, was better. And this is who Bruce Thornton is. He's a player who can score at all three levels better than most players in the Big Ten. That three-point shot, it's good. You'll take it. But the fact that he can get to the paint and he can score at the rim, the fact that he can get to the paint and dribble around, grab dribble, and score over guys like Zach Edey, like he's done in the past against Purdue, and the fact that he can pull up, snap a shot up really quickly, and tickle the twine with a shot from 15 feet out from the corner, you'll take that as well. That is what makes Bruce Thornton so difficult to guard. You can't funnel him to just one spot on the floor, and that's why he should be not just an all-conference player, but he should be an All-American. Now, what do we need this season from Bruce Thornton? Well, we need more three-point production. He went from 38% down to 33% from deep last season, from freshman to sophomore seasons. He was more productive defensively as well. He's only fouled out twice in his career. Once last year against West Virginia. You sometimes just have to take a break. That West Virginia game felt like a fever dream. It's I believe it was between Christmas and New Year's, and we go into overtime. It was a weird game. Chris Holtman's still the head coach. What a long, strange journey it's been as an Ohio State Buckeye fan and a person covering the team. We move on. He fouled out in that game. That one was in overtime, and he fouled out once against San Diego State as a freshman. That was his fourth career game. Here's the facts with Bruce Thornton. If he can be the guy for Ohio State, this team is not just a contender in the Big Ten. It's not just a fringe top 25 team like they are currently as the AP sees them. They are not just a team that they should make the NCAA tournament. We'll see. This is a team with Bruce Thornton playing at his highest potential, which is as an All-American. This is a player who elevates the entire team because of how he can score, how he can distribute, how he can lead a team as a veteran presence. He allows Ohio State to not just be a fringe NCAA tournament team. Yeah, maybe they'll get a 5 seed in the Big Ten tournament. No, this is a top 3 team in the Big Ten. This is a Sweet 16 team that you're saying, man, they could be sneaky in the NCAA tournament, making a Final Four run potentially. If Bruce Thornton is that good, there's no reason to think Ohio State as a whole cannot be this good. He is the guy for Ohio State, and he gives Ohio State the highest potential at this point. Tayson Chapman, number 3. He's out for the season with an ACL injury. He started to come on late in the year for Ohio State. Again, this hurts your depth, as we talked about. Just because Tayson Chapman is out for the year doesn't mean you get a new scholarship spot. That is the issue. Because Tayson Chapman is out for the year, he stays on scholarship. I think Quez Glover was the one who came in. Maybe it was Ivan Nigavan. I don't remember which player is not technically on scholarship, but because of NIL, they made it work out to where their tuition is covered. But Tayson Chapman being out, you don't get another scholarship spot. That hurts the depth for Ohio State. If he's in, feel a lot better about Ohio State's potential in the backcourt. We move on from Tayson Chapman. Unfortunately, we hope that he recovers quickly. We hope that he recovers fully. Quez Glover, number 6 for Ohio State. This is an interesting case here. So he goes from Florida to Samford to Kansas State. Now finally he's to Ohio State. He's bounced around in college basketball. He missed the entire season last year with a knee injury. Let's talk about who he is as a player. So at Florida, people should probably realize he did contribute at Florida, a very good Florida team with multiple NBA players. He played 31 games as a freshman, 12 minutes per game. That's a role player. That's real minutes. That's real playing time. He got minutes with 4 NBA players on the roster, and the team won 19 games. That was a COVID-shortened year. Who knows where they would have gone from there, but Quez Glover got real playing time as a freshman at an SEC school that maybe would have made it around the NCAA tournament. We don't know. Who knows? Then he goes to Samford. Consistently, well, he had one more year at Florida, missed some time. Then he goes to Samford, consistently improved the three-point shooting from 24% to 25% to 31% to 38% over his career in college. Really began to grow at Samford. He became the ultimate scorer there, making shots at all levels. The issue is the injuries. He missed time his sophomore year at Florida. He missed 11 games as a senior at Samford. He missed the entire season against Kansas State. The question is, can that knee, can the health hold up? He's only played one full season in college. The good thing is that really for the first time, you're not asking for 30 plus minutes out of Quez Glover. Obviously, as a freshman, he didn't get that playing time and he didn't miss any time. But as he's been asked to play more minutes, he's only had 1 year where he's completed a full season. Now you're not asking for 30 minutes. Now you're asking for 20, for 18 minutes, something like that. If you're reducing the load on him, you're number one, if you play 30 minutes in a game compared to 20 minutes in a game, you're basically increasing your chance for injury by 10 minutes every game because you're on the floor rather than just sitting on the bench. So that's good. But as a season progresses, as it carries on, can this be your speedy player? Can this be your fast player who can hit threes and can do that in 20 minutes per game or thereabouts? He was, by the way, one of the most effective scorers in college basketball in the 2022-23 season. He averaged 23.8 points per 90 minutes. That was 99th percentile in all of college basketball. This comes from CBB Analytics, of course. His usage percentage jumped up to 30%. He did a great job getting to the charity stripe and made 86% of his shots from the free throw line. Now, coming from the Bulldogs is a Bulldog type of player right here. 74% at the rim as well. That's really, really good. Really good assist rate and wasn't awful when it came to turnovers as well. This was a good player. And now he's going to be at Ohio State. The playing time will be reduced. Can you get that same type of production from a player who's going to play less minutes and hopefully stay healthy? If so, again, you feel really good about Quez Glover, like you feel really good about a lot of players on this team. So we'll see what happens with him. There's a lot of potential there, and there's a lot of good things. If you're asking me which player has the largest green arrow, the stock is up out of practice, it's Quez Glover over everyone, over Bruce Thornton, over Meechie Johnson, over Junie Mobley, Aaron Bradshaw, Sean Stewart, doesn't matter. This is a player who is impressed the most in practice. So expect playing time and expect production out of Quez Glover. Micah Parrish, number 8 on the team this year, wearing Ocho on the jersey. So obviously a very experienced player. We know that. He's made a Final Four run with San Diego State. He's been exceptional in his years playing with San Diego State and Oakland. Last year, he averaged 9.5 points per game, 1.8 assists per game, 4.1 rebounds, and he slashed at a 39-30, 73 rate. Those numbers, they're fine. They're not great. However, the backcourt, something we haven't talked about a lot, at least to this point, is defense. Bruce Thornton's a fine defender. He can steal some passes. He can steal the ball off the dribble at times. He can be active in the passing lanes and put the clamps on players at times. Do you expect that from Meechie Johnson? Not necessarily. Do you expect that from Junie Mobley? Not necessarily. Do you expect it from Micah Parrish? Yes, 100% you do. So not only did he take care of the ball exceptionally well last season and throughout his career in college, 2.6 steal rate is spectacular, and he also did not deal with a lot of foul trouble. So you're talking risk reward. You're getting a lot of reward and not getting a lot of risk out of Micah Parrish. And he averaged 21 points per game, or not points per game. That would be great. 21 minutes per game or more in both seasons at San Diego State. So it's not like he was sitting the bench there and just kind of riding on the waves of other players in that Final Four run or anything like that. He's really, really good. And he's been trusted at San Diego State for multiple seasons. This is a really, really good shooter from the mid-range as well. 50% of his shots from the mid-range went in last season. Got to figure out the deep shot, though. There's another player like Bruce Thornton where as the three-point attempts go up, the efficiency goes down. He had one more attempt per game from deep last season than he did 2 years ago, and his three-point percentage dropped by 5 percentage points. If you can ask for, I don't think you're necessarily going to ask for less than 4 3-pointers per game out of Micah Parrish. If it is less than 4, it's not going to be less by that much. If you're still going to ask for that same number, can you get closer to 40 than 35 like he was 2 years ago compared to last season? Now, this year, talking about Micah Parrish, what do you expect? Well, he's going to provide Ohio State with extra possessions. He's got the ability to be crafty, to steal the ball away. That's as I talk about all the time. Turnovers are so important. Forcing turnovers was not something that Chris Holtmann necessarily emphasized at Ohio State. I don't know if that's something that Jake Diebler is emphasizing. I haven't asked, but turnovers are so important because it's -1 possessions for the offensive team and it's +1 possessions for you. 1 plus -1. Am I doing this correctly? Whatever the equation is, it equals 2. It's a net 2 gain for you because you're taking away a possession and you're gaining 1 as well. So it's a net gain of +2. Micah Parrish is going to be very, very important for Ohio State in that regard. He also, his ability to score at the rim through contact really helps. He's got good size, but he needs to make more than 54% of his attempts at the rim. That's not good enough. If you can increase that to 60, 65%, that's going to help Ohio State really, really well as well. And then he's a spectacular passer. He's got good vision. This is something that I don't know how many people are covering Micah Parrish over this offseason, the way that the Views from the Shot podcast is. Selfish plug, whatever. But I haven't even talked about it that much. He is a spectacular passer, especially into the post, through entries. He's smart. He knows how to place a ball. He was feeding Jaden Ledee all the time in his time at San Diego State and through the pick and roll. He's really smart there as well. He knows when to dump it off, and he can get the ball exactly, exquisitely where you want it to be. Chef's kiss, postman, whether it's Aaron Bradshaw, Sean Stewart, whoever it may be, rolling off that pick, is able to score because of a nice pass from Micah Parrish. So that's what you expect in a player like Micah Parrish. Again, this season preview series, this backcourt preview series, whatever you want to call it, this episode, is all about who are these new players for Ohio State? What are you expecting from them? That's what you should expect from Micah Parrish. All right, we got 3 players left to go here. 2 of these are going to be very quick. Colby Baumann, number 10 for Ohio State. He's taken over Jamison Battle's number, so congrats on that. Played in 4 games last year, 7 total minutes played in the entire season. He scored against Michigan. I was sitting not with his family, near his family. With his family would imply that I went to the game with them, when that would not be accurate, but near his family. And I was actually sitting near a lot of, or I will say with, I didn't go with them, but I was sitting with, kind of in the section of players' families and parents and siblings and all that. When he scored, man, I mean, it brings a tear to your eye. That family was the Baumann family. So happy for Colby Baumann. Ohio State destroyed Michigan. It was a fantastic game, fantastic experience, and that was kind of a cherry on top, I'm sure, for that family. Look, Colby Baumann, if you're leaning on him for a lot of minutes at Ohio State, a lot of things have gone wrong. You've dealt with injuries, foul trouble, whatever the case may be. That's nothing against him. Look, if you can go out and make your first 3-pointer of your career against Campbell, go do it, and we'll love it. Moving on to Braylen Nash, wearing number 14, freshman walk-on. He averaged 17 points per game at New Albany High School last year, conference player of the year. He's 6'4", he's 180, so he's got good size, good height. He's a walk-on. He's a freshman. If he's playing any meaningful minutes, bad things are happening at Ohio State basketball. All right, Colin White, the last player we'll cover here, and then we're going to get into the questions that we've got surrounding the backcourt. This is an exceptional pace. You know, I asked for some feedback on the show. Maybe you remember this, maybe you don't. I asked for feedback on the show during the spring. I said, hey, what do you like about the show? What do you not like? Send out a survey. If you fill that out, I thank you. I thank you. I thank you. Someone told me to speak faster. I feel like I'm doing that right now. This has been not a marathon. This has been a sprint. Colin White, the last player we're going to cover here for Ohio State, rocking number 20 for the Buckeyes this season. So on 247 Sports, he was listed at 6'5". Now on the official roster for Ohio State, listed at 6'6". Now, the trend, whether you're in college basketball, college football, whatever it is, the trend is let's add an inch or so of height. Although I heard Ohio State football was the most accurate in sizing players for height when it comes to the NFL draft of any program. Maybe that is true for the basketball program as well. But maybe he's grown an inch. Maybe he's 6'6" now. That's cool. 205 pounds. He comes in, and I've said this since the time that he committed to Ohio State. He comes in with a pretty dang ready, Big Ten ready body and frame, and that helps a lot. He's long. He's got good size. He scored 25 points per game as a senior at Ottawa Glandorf. He was Ohio Mr. Basketball. He's going to come in and play the 3. Everyone else we've talked about so far is really only going to play the 1 and the 2, other than Micah Parrish. this would probably be your number one backup to Micah Parrish, potentially. At least he's in that conversation. He's going to fight for that role. You've got Evan Mahaffey, you've got Devin Royal, you've got Sean Stewart. All those types of players could also play the three, but Colin White is going to be in that conversation as well to back up Micah Parrish, depending on what kind of rotation, what kind of matchups you want to play with. So looking at this year, look, he's outside the top 125, or at least outside the top 100 in the 247 high school recruiting rankings. He's a 3-star player. Like I said on the onset of the show, Ohio State asked him to become more well-rounded before offering him. Once offered, he still was asked to become more well-rounded. He's done that. He's a better shooter. He's a better ball handler. He's a better distributor. That's what I've heard. Is he perfect? No. Is he where they want him to be 2 years from now? No, of course not. But he has improved in that area. We know that he can rise up. He can dunk. He can finish. That's kind of been his specialty, his forte in high school playing. And he's going to see playing time this year for Ohio State. How much? Not sure. Are we looking at 5 minutes per game? Are we looking at 9 minutes per game? I don't know. Probably something like that. But this is a player I'll be rooting for. He's an Ohio kid. That's something that Jake Diebler has wanted. This is the only Ohio kid in the class of 2024 heading in as a freshman. Now you only get 3 players. One isn't even from the United States in the freshman class, but he's an Ohio kid. You can root for that. He's going to be committed to this program, and you root for him. What are you going to get out of him this year? Not a lot of minutes, but if he can come in and give you quality minutes, you're thrilled. And as you go up and down this list, there are questions that come up. So let's get into that. But before we get into that, going to talk about our exclusive partner for the Views from the Schott podcast. So that is CBB Analytics. So you can head to cbbanalytics.com right now. I use this website to prepare for literally every show. When we're talking about shooting charts, when you're talking about percentage at the rim, in the paint, mid-range, behind the three-point line, specific areas on the floor, heat maps, things like that. When it comes to shooting zones, you can find that on cbbanalytics.com. Go there, check it out, create an account. You can create a free account with no commitment. You don't have to put in a credit card or anything like that, and just check it out. And then I would suggest maybe pay for a subscription, invest in that, because, well, it helps out this show and it helps you out too. Talking about betting, if you remember the banger bets we came out with when player props were still around last season on the show, we hit on a lot of those. All of the data came from cbbanalytics.com. So if you're in a state where you can bet on player props, I would use that. Now, CBB Analytics, that's not what they say their platform is for. It will help. Even if you aren't there for player props, we still hit on, I think, like a Cornell bet or something like that using CBB Analytics, because we uncovered something in terms of pace of play, things like that. Use CBB Analytics. Go there, cbbanalytics.com. We thank them for sponsoring the show and the Views from the Schott podcast for this season. Let's get into questions now in regards to the backcourt. Number one question that we have, something that we've hinted at already. Can these guards shoot better than what they've shown in the past? The biggest question I'm going to save for the end, kind of related to this, who's going to step up and be your best shooter this year? It could be Bruce Thornton. It could be Meechie Johnson. It could be Micah Parrish. Who knows? There are going to be players on this team who can hit threes, but you need them to hit threes efficiently. And that's something that you saw at Ohio State under Chris Holtmann. This was a pretty good three-point shooting team. Now, the issue was that while they were at times the number 1 3-point shooting team, number 2, number 3 in the Big Ten, they would attempt the 9th most three-pointers in a year. So while you're really, really good, you're not shooting a lot. This is going to be the difference under Jake Diebler. They will shoot a lot of threes. If you're getting the same efficiency that you've gotten under Chris Holtmann, oh my gosh, this is going to be the best three-point shooting team in the nation. However, you're probably not going to get that because you're playing faster, you're getting more shots up, and traditionally players that get more shots up, they tend to make less of them on a percentage basis. So, can you have a couple players improve their three-point percentages from what you saw over the past couple years by 1, 2, 3 points? If so, you've got a really, really good three-point shooting team. We know they're going to shoot a lot. Can they be a good three-point shooting team? Second question we have, how concerning is the depth? This is something that I'm keeping an eye on. I don't know if anyone else is talking about this. I don't know if this is a concern for you as a fan of Ohio State basketball, but if this is going to be a good Ohio State version, a good version of Ohio State basketball, they're going to have to be deep. They're going to play a lot of players. Jake Diebler, I believe, is going to go up and down the rotation. A lot of guys are going to play. This isn't going to be a 7-8 deep rotation. It's going to be closer to 10, maybe even more than that. Who knows? But if that's the case, then you're going to need to be deep at guard and in the backcourt because injuries are going to happen. You already don't have Taysom Chapman. You've got Quez Glover. You don't know how much you can rely on him to stay healthy at this point. You don't know how much you can rely on Meechie Johnson to stay out of foul trouble. That could be an issue. And we'll know a month or two into the season because Ohio State's going to be tested by Texas A&M, Kentucky. That'll be in December, late December. Still is a test. Pitt. You're going to have games like that, and you will know very quickly, is this team deep enough in the backcourt? That's the biggest question. One of the biggest questions I have for Ohio State. Third question, can Bruce Thornton be an All-American? It's simple. If Bruce Thornton plays to that 90th percentile type of player that he can be, that means he's an All-American. That means he's very, very good for Ohio State, and that means he's going to really help carry the load for the Buckeyes. You don't become an All-American without not only being very productive, but also being very efficient. If you can get both of those things out of Bruce Thornton, this team is easily a Sweet 16 team, if not better. Last question I have. Jamison Battle is no longer on this team. Jamison Battle hit big-time shots for Ohio State, and he was incredibly productive. He was one of the best three-point shooters in the Big Ten. I believe he made the most three-pointers in the Big Ten last season, or at least he was up there, or maybe he had the best three-point percentage. It was one of those two. He's a very good three-point shooter. Who is that this year? Who is the Jamison Battle on the roster this year? I don't think it's Bruce Thornton. I don't necessarily think it's Meechie Johnson. I think your best chance of having a true Jamison Battle three-point sniper consistently, productively, hitting several three-pointers in a game, your best chance of that is probably Junie Mobley, and he's a freshman that we have not seen anything from. He has not played the rigors of playing Division I college basketball. He has not had to play Michigan State and then Iowa and then Wisconsin and then Purdue all in the span of 2 weeks, which I don't think Ohio State has that this year, but they have some stretches that are going to be tough because they're playing in the Big freaking Ten Conference. So who's the Jamison Battle this year? It's going to have to be Junie Mobley, I think. Maybe it's Meechie Johnson. If not, I don't know that you have that on this team. And I think that you really, really do need that. You need that one guy you can look to hit threes. Remember, Ohio State's season ended on a Jamison Battle three-pointer falling just short. It was a deep shot. It was still a good look. They lost to Georgia in the NIT tournament by inches because Jamison Battle couldn't hit a three. But the good thing was that you knew that if you needed a three-pointer drawn up, Jamison Battle was going to be the guy to rise up and hit a shot. Dale Bonner made a three against Michigan State, a buzzer-beating three. Dale Bonner wasn't the three-point marksman by any regards, but who's going to be the player that you draw a play up for when you need a three? If it's not Junie Mobley, I'm concerned. All right. I think we made good time. We're under an hour at least, so we'll take that. We're going to be back on Thursday, and today we previewed the backcourt. On Thursday, we're going to preview, yes, you guessed it, the front court. That means Sean Stewart, Devin Royal, Aaron Bradshaw, and many other players as well. Probably be a shorter episode because there's less players to preview, but alas, I hope you'll still listen. So that's the backcourt. We'll do the front court. I actually, last week, I kind of planned out. Let me see if I can find this really quickly here. I'm not going to, I will find it quickly. I planned out what's the schedule going to look like for not just this month in the season preview series, but for the entire season. If you're already listening or watching at this point, then I would say you're probably pretty committed to the Views from the Schott podcast. So I have a question for you that I will ask your feedback on. My plan is to do one kind of weekly preview show, and then we're going to recap every single game that Ohio State plays this year. Last year, and what we've done in years past has been, I'm going to preview the Texas game like on a Sunday or Monday. Texas plays on Monday. I'm going to record on Monday night. That's going to go out on Monday night, and I'll publish it on Twitter and everything on Tuesday. Then they play Youngstown State on Thursday. I'm going to do a Wednesday show to preview Youngstown State. I'm going to do a recap show on Thursday night that is published to everyone on Friday. That's a freaking lot, okay? That is a lot. I'm not complaining. I did choose this life, but I think that the plan moving forward is going to be we're going to do a weekly preview, which means instead of 2 preview shows, it's 1, and we're going to crush Texas for 15 minutes. We'll crush together that with Youngstown State, for example. The 2 games in the week, we'll preview them at the same time. Is that okay with you? Think about the ramifications of that. That means you're gonna learn about Youngstown State on Monday when they don't play until Thursday. Is that cool with you? If that's cool, that's kosher. Great, because it helps me out. Because number one, I get to do less shows, which means I can give more quality and more time into that one preview show. And number two, sometimes life gets in the way. I'm not here to complain. Everyone has 24 hours. If you're too busy for something, it just means you didn't prioritize it over everything else you had in your 24 hours in a day. Sometimes life got too busy for me, and that meant I could not push out a preview show. So by doing this once per week, it means that I only have to do 1 show instead of 2 per week. Dialing that back by 50% means that I should be able to get a preview show out for every single game this year. So there's that. But if you don't like that idea, please do tell me, because I don't want to produce something and you not like it, and that's not good for me. It's not good for you. Anyways, we'll do the front court preview coming up on Thursday. Next Monday, we're going to preview the schedule on October 24th on Thursday. We're going to do the biggest changes, biggest questions that we expect for the upcoming year. October 28th, we're hitting a prediction show. That's predicting the team, players, the Big Ten, the Final Four, a champion as well. And then October 30th, we'll do a mailbag before Thursday, November 1st. We're previewing Texas. That's the plan. You probably have stopped listening at this point. If you haven't, I thank you for that. That's your plan, just so you know. All right. It is time for me to stop talking. Therefore, I thank you for listening to today's show more than you'll ever understand. I'm going to shut up before you shut me off. Go Bucks.